Hey, welcome to another live stream. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Let me know. Yeah, Rahul's already jumped in. Say hi. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat. We're going to be talking about AI. In particular, we're going to be talking about product management and how I am seeing it change and the AI era. I've actually been kind of called out on this one recently. The reason for that is because I haven't really been talking about this a lot. So some of you might not really have noticed that, but for those who do follow me and have noticed this, haven't really been talking about AI all that much. I've started to talk about it, so hence the calling out thing. But I also run a product mentorship. I also run courses, and naturally, the courses that I ran at the end of last year around product discovery, and then this year around product strategy, I naturally talked about how AI is changing the way that we do strategy and the way that we do product discovery. And I've been sharing how it's changed for me. And naturally, the people have been a little bit surprised, and they called me out saying that I'm further down the AI path, or maybe more AI pilled than I come across because I don't share that much about it. But all of that is changing. We're going to be sharing more about it. We'll be talking about it now. I've got a lot of things that I want to go through. But that's been deliberate for two reasons. Reason number one is I just wanted to avoid a real knee jerk reaction when it first happened. I mean, we can all remember like 2024. People were calling product was dead, right? And then fast forward, like last year, people were basically saying product was the only role left. So we've kind of done this full 180. And I think as product people, like we should be practicing this, avoiding that knee jerk reaction. We should be very intentional about things, and we should be very conscious and not react to a competitor or not react to some feedback that we heard from customers. Take it slow, be intentional, go do the validation and stuff. And that's kind of what I've been busy doing the last 12, 18 months, is just trying to get as AI pilled as I can, get as deep into the space as I can possible. I'm going to show you some stuff as well, or well, at least that's the plan. So we'll see how that goes. And also just been seeing how it's played out with my clients. Like I'm in a very privileged position. Like I'm a product coach, so I work with companies all around the world. I got a product mentorship, as I mentioned, but I get to speak to and work with product people everywhere. And it's sorry, just looking at the comments to make sure people can hear me. So welcome from Sydney, Copenhagen. I love the group of people kind of join in different spaces. And so I've also seen all my clients. I've had a very broad range. I've had clients that are trying to ship actual AI products and features to customers, all the way through to ones that are only really using it for like engineering, and they're trying to get product to use like Claude Code a little bit more and that type of stuff. So a whole wide range of different things. And I want to just see what's working, what's not, and kind of build my own perception around it and my own opinion, and try and make it built in evidence and fact. So that's what I've done. And I've tried to package up everything that I've seen, the shifts that I'm seeing. I want to share it all with you in this video. And hey, from France. So what I'm going to do is I want to break this down into three sections. We're going to talk about how the work is changing. So I think this is very important context, because we need to understand how is AI, regardless of roles, how is it impacting the work? So how do we do product development? That's changing. So we'll talk about that. Then I want to talk about the role, of course. So how does that then have a knock-on effect to product management, and how does it change how we do product management? And then I want to talk about how that then the environment around it. So how are companies changing? How are companies rethinking roles? Obviously, we'll start to talk about what happens to associate product managers. And that's going to kind of lead into the end. We'll answer questions throughout. I have a few little open-ended questions of I guess, challenges that I think we are dealing with right now that we're going to have to continue to work through. So we'll work all the way up until that. So let's get into it. Just looking at the comments, there's one from YouTube. Can make a video about how to find first AI PM job with no experience in the comment videos. I'll consider it. I think that's possibly, we possibly could. We'll consider it, but cool. Let's get into it. Let's start with how the work is changing. And I'm going to share screen. I'm going to just sketch and talk as I go through this. The big shift. So I want to just start here. This was a big shift. And this was probably me about 12 months ago, right? So this was starting to do AI, starting to build stuff with AI myself, as well as working with clients, actually trying to build stuff. So let me just describe product development kind of today and what's changed. So if we think about it along this graph, and it's not a perfect visualization, but hopefully it'll make sense. Think of this as time, and maybe think of this as like, you could think of this as like fidelity. You could also think of it as like value in a way. I think of it more like fidelity. When we build products, often we build something small. The first thing that we build is like very low functionality. Think about building a website. Like you're going to do all the back end stuff to get like the environment set up. And then you go into build like something that has like one field and one button on it. It's like really low fidelity. It doesn't really do much. And then we're going to add fidelity to it. You're going to add some more fields, some more buttons, add some more design, some colors. Then we start to add more features, more functionality. We have a search bar, we have login, all of that type of stuff. But what I'm trying to visualize here is like the development was quite linear in the sense that from a stakeholder's perspective or somebody else, you go from something that has very little amount of features and functions to a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And you can kind of see it evolve and grow over time. AI, on the other hand, just disrupts this completely. And what it does instead is like, like functionally, what it looks like out here, we can kind of do in minutes. So we're like kind of like the first version that we do can look amazing. And I'm sure many of you have actually done that. Like you've built stuff and it, like you've been blown away at what AI can do. So what ends up happening is we kind of move up this curve really, really quickly. And maybe I'm going to shift this a little bit. Let me just shift this down a little bit. It's going to mess up the rest of my picture. So we move up this this curve really, really quickly. But then the tail piece of getting it from here to actually to a point where we can actually ship it, we can give it to customers, we can put it in production. This time period is very like long. So what I mean by that is like we can get to here in a matter of minutes. I'll just say mins. And then from here to here would be like days, in fact, weeks. And depending on what you're trying to build, it can be as long as months. And I had a real example 12, maybe a bit less, 9 months ago, a client trying to get something, an AI feature into production, got to this point in a matter of days. It was about 4 days. We'll just say 4 days. And then it took them about 4 weeks afterwards to actually get it into production. And this is something that I've seen repeat with all of my clients, even with my own stuff. Another simple example. I have a daily bot that basically pings me in the morning. It goes through my to-do list. It goes through my calendar. It goes through just everything, emails and all that. And then it gives me a little bit of a daily digest rundown. It also tells me what's happening in the next 2 days. And I can do a video on that. I definitely will. So yeah, we can do that. But that took me about 2 hours to get up and running, like the first version. But then it just had a whole bunch of bugs and issues. It was getting because large language models are like this. It was getting confused with dates. It was getting confused with times. It had context rot. So it had trying to do too much in one prompt. So I then have probably invested about another 20 hours into that, just refining it, adding more functions to it. Like I added my emails and stuff to it. And just fixing it, right? And even today, I get the occasional bug. Like the other day, something that was scheduled for like 6 p.m., it said 6 a.m. So I thought it was like a.m., not p.m. So it still doesn't get it completely right. And I'm still, putting evals in it and trying to fix it. But you can just that as an example, getting this thing that looks good, like a daily digest into your inbox. It goes into Slack. You can get that up and running in 2 hours, but actually making it useful and not having these issues and stuff has taken me like another 20 hours to do. So product development, I know this is a messy graph, but what it means is the work is starting to shift where it's not linear anymore. It's actually looking a lot more like this. And this is something that we need to manage, because if you work inside of a company, I'll get more into like how this changes the role in a minute, but you can see the repercussions of all this. One of them is if you work in a company, your stakeholders are used to this linear like progression. And then suddenly they're like, why can't we ship this thing? And then you have to explain to them all of this. And by the way, a lot of this work is invisible. You just don't see it. Like it's fine tuning, it's small improvements, it's stuff like that. So you don't really see those things. So you need to manage those expectations, but work just changes, and the type of work you do here versus the type of work you do here and here is also just fundamentally different than what we've done in the past. So there's a bit of an illusion around speed. I think, it's shown that things are definitely faster. AI has given us capabilities that we didn't have before, but this invisible illusion that we don't really see and we don't talk about is something that, I think it's just really important, and there's just nobody talks about it online. So everyone's like, oh, look at this amazing thing that I built here. And I'm like, okay, let's actually get it into production. And that's going to be a lot harder than you actually think it is. So that's probably shift number one. The other shift that this does, because of this first part, sorry, I'm just making really messy drawings. Because of this first part, the unit of work that we work on is shifting. So to paint a picture of this, we would normally typically we uncover an opportunity. That opportunity leads to discovery. We then work out different solution ideas that we could have with that. We then decide on a solution idea. We then tend to spec out that solution. That tends to be a feature, right? Then we tend to break this down into smaller pieces to incrementally and iteratively deliver it. Those smaller pieces tend to be usually like user stories. We kind of refer to them as user stories, or they're backlog items. And then, we have these individual tasks that we then break those things down. And that was kind of like your typical flow through this, right? But if we can build this whole spec, you need to ask yourself, actually wind up a second. We need to ask ourselves, why do we need to do that? And we need to do that because delivering this spec used to take days. In fact, probably not days. Actually, it took weeks, right? User stories were more like something that we can complete in days. Tasks was something we can complete kind of in hours. And this spec was something that's going to take us weeks to do. So rather than, working on something for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, we want to break that down, right? Because we want to be agile. We want, feedback loops, all that type of stuff. So this is how we've worked traditionally. But if AI completely changes this, which is what it's done, everything kind of shifts. What we can achieve in weeks, we can now achieve in hours. Apart from, I'm just talking about this part, not this part, right? Not this invisible part. So what's the point of breaking things down to all these user stories and into all these tasks? So what I'm observing with myself and a lot of the clients that I work with is just product teams, the way that they work and the unit of work that they work on is moving away from this user story to more this level of work. And in actual fact, there's teams that I'm even clients and working with where engineers would have multiple feature branches with multiple of these features basically being developed at any given time, right? So we can actually be working on multiple of these at once, just like you would be doing that with tasks. So the unit of work is getting bigger. So the way that this pipeline and the way that we work and decomposing work down to this level is changing. This has a knock-on effect with how we work, which I'll kind of get to in a little bit too when we talk about the role. So shift number 2 is that the unit of work is becoming bigger because we can do things, at least for that first part, we can do things quicker. We don't need to go through these incremental steps. Now, the third shift on all of this that is starting to happen from a work perspective is the roles are starting to move up or to the left, depending on how you want to visualize this, and not down. Now, this is actually a little bit contrary to what you see online and what everybody's kind of talking about. So if you think about, we'll just do it like this. Okay, so we go vision, strategy. And this isn't a perfect model, but at a high level, we go discovery, and also product development's non-linear, but you get my point, right? So we go delivery, which is like the building part, and then you could say like launch, release if you want. I'm running out of space. But that part's not that relevant here. If vibe coding, so let's say, okay, as a product manager today, you're kind of like this, right? PM. And if you listen to what a lot of people are saying online, and I'm not caveating all of this, right? This is not me saying don't learn the vibe code, but I'm going to break this down. We'll get into the nuance. If you listen to everybody not everyone. If you listen to the dominant rhetoric online, correct myself, and somebody's going to clip it and yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you listen to it, everyone's saying learn the vibe code, right? And again, this isn't me saying don't learn the vibe code. I vibe code all the time right now. But vibe coding insinuates what? It insinuates that we're moving not to the left, we're moving to the right, right? Getting more involved into delivery. Okay. So why would we want to get more involved in delivery if AI is just eating all of this up? All right. Just like question mark, right? Okay. Now, there is still vibe coding to just build something really quickly if you're like a solopreneur or one of those more intrapreneurs. Is that what they call it when you're inside of a company and you're more entrepreneurial? There's definitely cases where it's like, I don't want to have to go through all the energy and effort and it's going to take too much time and I don't want to bother engineers, so I want to be able to just do it. There's really small pet project things that you can do for yourself. You can build yourself a company, so definitely vibe code if you want to be able to build yourself a company. There's also like vibing prototypes, right? So vibe coding prototypes, but that's different. Where do prototypes fit? Prototypes fit here. All right. Types. I can't type today. Okay, cool. So prototypes sit here. So vibe coding to learn how to prototype in order to better prototype, in order to do discovery. Awesome. Another part that, I'm seeing with my clients and other companies out there, I'm reading about it, is also learning how to vibe code just to fix a lot of those small bugs, right? So why bother an engineer when you can just fix something really small yourself and they can code review it? Awesome. Not saying, so this is not me saying don't do any of that. But if we fast forward this, and this is more where I'm seeing it actually happen on the ground with my clients and even with myself. If AI is going to largely eat all of this up, it means that all of the roles are starting to shift this way, which means that the future, when you think about product management, I'll use a different color, is actually probably going to be more like ending here. Launching and stuff is a different story. We still need to be involved with that. That's a whole different kettle of fish. But you start to kind of go like this way, right? Which means that we spend less time here and we start to spend more time here. And this isn't just product. This is design as well. This is engineering as well. And you've probably seen this already where like there's been a lot of talk around like engineers becoming more like tech leads or more like engineering managers, and they're starting to shift more upstream, right? So this is what I'm observing happening. Again, this isn't to say don't learn the vibe code, but what is happening is we're starting to shift upstream, because this will eventually and largely be solved by AI, and we're starting to get there. Or at the very least, it's engineers plus AI can do that really quickly, and we free up more time. And the hard part, the thing that is not being solved right now, and large language models aren't great at solving them, is that decision-making, strategy, taste, judgment, all of that, right? So that's where humans and all of us start to shift towards. So another way to think about this is also like, you can think of it as like, what is AI good at and what is it not good at? Or you can think of what is still really hard today. So if AI is making these things easy, what still feels hard? And this stuff is still hard. And strategy will always be hard, in my opinion. So that's where we start to shift. So I'm seeing us shift more to the left and more up. And this goes for all the roles and not so much down, right? This obviously means that there is something that people have talked a lot about, which is the roles coming together. So product, design, and then engineering. And somebody said, hey, on YouTube, and I'm just going to say, hey, back. Welcome. Questions. There's questions. I'm going to go through some of these questions as well. I just want to talk about the concepts and we'll have the back and forth. I like the back and forth, so I'm going to get to it. So there's been talk about like we're all coming together, probably very bad Venn diagram. This wouldn't be a product talk or a live stream if we weren't doing, if I didn't draw a Venn diagram. But there's been a lot of talk about everything coming together and this talk about like having this like product builder role, right? Now, I'm not saying that I'm not seeing this happen, but I want to add all the flavor and the nuance and what I am seeing happening around this. So for starters, let's again wind up a little bit because everyone gets excited and they're like like want to jump on the latest thing. If we wind up a little bit, the idea of product design and engineering coming together has been something that's been happening for decades, right? So if we go all the way back to a time where we were very waterfall and these roles were very separate, PM writes a product requirements document, design ends up coming up with user designs, or well, it was really just UI design back then. Maybe they did a bit of research, and then engineers kind of built the thing. This was very siloed and very handovers. That's what the word I was looking for. Then Agile comes in, and Agile goes, hey, why don't we all get inside of a cross-functional team together and we start to work together on this? So we already started getting closer. And then if you think about tools and technology, I remember a time pre-Figma, right? When me getting into design files as a product manager was hard to do. And then Figma comes along, and then I can get in there and move stuff around and piss off all the designers. I got a lot of friends who are designers. I wouldn't do that. But you get my point. Our ability to start to collaborate together gets closer. In fact, Figma starts to let you export CSS and actually some of the code, right? So engineering and design gets closer together. So this phenomena of the roles coming together has been, and tighter collaboration has been something that's been happening for decades. What has absolutely happened is AI has accelerated all of that. So we've kind of gone from, whatever pace we were at for coming together to like now really quickly coming together. That jump and that shock to the system is a shock to the system. So that jump is what we're feeling today. But I've seen this trend kind of be happening since for all of my career and for a long time. So this has accelerated it. What does this mean? Okay, well, this means that tighter collaboration and stuff. We'll talk more about this in a second, but obviously we're now stepping on each other's toes. We're kind of relearning our roles a little bit, relearning where the boundaries are. We're learning to collaborate with each other's again. I'm seeing this with all of my clients and the teams that I work with. We're relearning how do we work together in this AI world. But also, let's talk about this product builder. What I'm seeing is this is not replacing roles. So I'm not seeing these roles be deleted and we just have like one Uber role here. Expertise is still needed, at least in the short term. We'll question mark about long-term horizon. Who knows, right? Like, I don't know. I can't speculate. Well, I can speculate, but I'm not going to. But expertise is still needed. So again, going back to, this is why I'm trying to walk through it in this way. It's not so easy to get it into production. There's still all of this work that happens here. We still need engineering expertise, security expertise, that type of stuff to do that and to work through it, right? Design as well. Like, yes, AI can kind of vibe design stuff, and I've used it to do that. But is it amazing? Is it world breaking? Does it have taste and stuff? No, we still need an element of that. And we also just need the people power to be able to review stuff and go through what the AI has done. So these roles are still existing. What am I seeing? I'll kind of touch this a bit more in that third section when we talk about the organization. Teams are getting smaller. So do we need a ratio of 5 engineers to 1 designer and 1 product manager anymore? No. Like 1 engineer or 2 engineers can do the work of what those 5 engineers could do before, or even more, right? So I'm seeing teams get smaller with my clients. The teams that aren't getting smaller, I'm seeing the PMs and the designers kind of burn out, to be perfectly frank. And maybe that's you right now and you're feeling that. So that's a whole nother shift we can talk about, but that's not happening. But I am still seeing this product builder come about, but I'm seeing it more as like this isolated role that you can throw at like problems, right? So if there are these, like I've seen this role actually get created where you just got this person that runs around the company, finds all these little operational inefficiencies, throws Claude Code at it or Codex or whatever tool of their choice, build a bunch of automation and just kind of just rip out all of this waste in the organization. And you just giving it to one person to do and giving them that autonomy and empowerment is a great way of making them move fast. They just kind of get in there, they just hack it together. And to be perfectly honest, when it's internal facing, it's probably good enough. So yeah, I'm still seeing that happen. Early stage validation, maybe one person can do all of that and kind of do that, but I'm definitely not seeing that just replace product teams yet. Cool. Just having a quick look at some of these questions to see if it's worth touching on some of them. Yeah, cool. We'll touch on some of them later. So, how does all of this impact the role? So let's talk about the actual impacts to the role. Uh, One of them is the fact that, so just talking about this, where we have to collaborate and stuff together. I'm seeing that become an underrated skill. You would think that there's a tendency that if we have AI helping us with all this stuff, that we can collaborate less, right? But what I'm actually seeing is that we need to collaborate more. I'll pull the screen back up in a second. We actually need to collaborate more. The ability to, if you think about this world where we're all stepping on each other's toes, we need to do a few things here. One, we need to put egos aside, and I've definitely seen some examples where that's been a challenge in these teams with this shift. Because I get it, like you're a designer, and suddenly the product manager's coming to you and being like, "Look at this thing that I vibed, like isn't this awesome? Look, we could build this," and you're looking at it thinking, "Oh my god, that's terrible." But you also feel threatened, right? There's an element of like, "Oh, is this person taking my job?" And there's a huge undertone of that. That's probably a whole nother conversation going on right now, but obviously there's a big threat, but we're all relearning our jobs. So I think the people and the teams that are being the most successful right now are the ones that are willing to put all of that aside and go, my identity is not really connected to what I was doing before. I still add value. How do I relearn? How do I add value in this world and leverage AI to mix it with my expertise to then, be as valuable as possible and be okay with it. View it as the product managers just trying to visualize their idea and they're just trying to help, and then go, oh, that's great. Let me take that and let me then refine it and make it better, right? And put your expertise over it. So it requires more communication, more collaboration. The other reason why that's the case is because things can just move so fast. And if you're in this world where we can move really, really fast, we need more communication because there's more stuff happening. So one fundamental shift that I'm seeing right now is actually an increase in communication, an increase in collaboration, and just an increase in being okay with the uncertainty and that we are stepping on each other's toes, but we're all kind of swimming and rowing in the same direction. So that's kind of a shift. Again, less egos there. I wrote this in my notes for this, but Rory Sutherland's got this really good quote that just comes to mind here, which is, do you want to win arguments or solve problems, right? Do you want to show how smart you are as a product manager or a designer or engineer, or do you want to just solve problems and build something great? So that definitely comes to mind. The other shift that starts to happen here is that if we're doing lots of things, we have this potential to be doing a lot of juggling and a lot of multitasking, right? So if features are now a new unit of work, we could have multiple features all being built at the same time, and we can have multiple agents all working on that. And I'll even give you a tangible example from me, from a research point of view and doing discovery. I had 5 agents go off, or 5 research tasks, I should say, go off in Claude Code, and basically go and research 5 different areas and go and do some in-depth research, pull a whole bunch of insights and data, and basically package it all up. And the next day, so I had that running and then kind of log back in my computer the next day. I had 5 documents, multi-page documents of research, synthesized research that I had to go through. Now, there's totally a world where you go, you know what, I'm not going to go through any of that. And I'm just going to be like, hey, okay, Claude or AI, based on what is here, go and build, tell me what to build or whatever. I've talked about this a few times now, but I'm seeing kind of 2 types of personas use AI. One is using it in that way where they kind of just outsource all of their thinking to AI. They're like, hey, do it for me, right? They get AI to think for them. And the other camp are people who are using AI to sharpen their thinking, to improve their skills. I think you need to be in that camp because those people are just going to get better and better and better and better over time. They're going to become more high leverage, and the others is going to kind of degrade and they're going to lose skill. And if you actually get into that point and all you're doing is just saying yes to AI and just telling it to do the next thing, then you are replaceable. I can create a script to do that for you, or I could just get OpenClaw to do it instead, right? The people who can add value are the ones that are still overlaying judgment. So for me, with those 5 documents, I want to read them all. I want to do my own synthesis on it and just distill my own insights about it. And I want to cross-check not everything, but I'm going to cross-check the key things inside of it, which means that part of my research skill, I get it to actually make sure it puts links and it quotes everything so I can actually go and verify, because it could get something wrong. That's a reality as well. And if you take action, so a few things here, if you take action on poor data, you are going to potentially make mistakes, right? That's not good. Like taking action on the wrong data or bad data is not good. The other thing that you want to do is I want to make sure that I'm building my own understanding and my own intuition so I can improve my judgment, so I can point out when I think it's wrong, I can steer it in the right direction. And 100% the capabilities right now, you need to be steering it in the right direction. This is why the whole junior thing, like associate product managers, is such an interesting problem right now. We'll get to that in a second. So what does this mean? Okay, so we've got all of these agents. This means we're doing a lot of context switching, and context switching is not good. It can do not good things to your brain. And I've been having these conversations and with my clients and the teams I work with, and we've been trying to find that sweet spot, right? So we could theoretically have 50 features running at once, 50 agents working on it, 50 things, 50 research tasks. But the limitation is still us as people to consume that and to action it, right? Imagine an engineer with all of those pull requests. Like, it's just not feasibly possible. So what we're finding, and what I'm finding with my clients, is we're kind of working with like max half a dozen things at any given time, just because of the cognitive load, right? The context switching and the cognitive load. What this also means is I've noticed some people are just like slightly better at doing this, right? Slightly, like, they're better at context switching, they're better at working across these multiple things, kicking one thing off and then being like, oh, what about this? And kicking another thing off. So what that means is I think this is becoming a skill, or at least something that you need to be able to do. And what it actually means is that we actually start to act more like a manager in the true sense. Like, these are like our team, right? Like, that's your team, and you're kind of managing them in a way. And you need to think this way. This is actually like a full-on shift. It's not about like the normal way of working where you spec something out. Somebody said it about the spec-driven development, right? So Federico said it, right? So spec-driven development as a way to, I'll just pull it up on the screen so people can just read the comment. So use the spec-driven development as a way to collaborate and build at scale. It's helped me iterate with AI, and others are able to use it and add new features. So true. So this is what ends up happening, right? So if the unit of work is more feature, we start to just write the spec, and we do spec-driven development, and then we give the spec to AI, and we allow all AI plus engineers, and we allow them to figure it out. But what this also means is that we're in this world where if I'm giving AI like research tasks or something, I need to try and spec out that research task. I need to clearly describe the end state. I need to give them context. You need to think of these as like new team members, right? You can start to build this second brain. I'll get to that in a minute, but where it has that, but you still need to give it context, and you still need to steer it, which means skills that are coming out here are your ability to work through this, your ability to act as a manager, right? And to be in that manager mode where you kind of, it's like this concept where like you kind of want to be involved at the 10% at the start. And then there's 80. I think I actually heard Gary Vee say this, but this is a very good way to think about working as a manager. And when you become managers, especially like founders and stuff, you absolutely work this way. You want to be involved here and then here. And why do you want to be involved there? Well, because you want to give the vision, you want to give the context, you want to give the context, you want to give the intent, you want to steer it, right? And then you want to let them go. So you want AI to go, do the heavy lifting. But then you need to come back in and you need to reshape it. And you need to apply judgment, right? And those types of things, right? So, and taste. and you need to come back in. But this is like a way of operating. This is actually like a full-blown shift that some people are really good at. They're doing really well at, some product managers and just people in general, like engineers and stuff too. Like that's why the tech leads tend to be excelling here. And then some are struggling with it. And we'll talk more about the junior thing, but obviously you can probably see why associate product managers and junior roles get squeezed here is because you kind of need seniority to be able to do this. All right. It's not as simple as someone junior that doesn't really have that judgment and stuff because they don't have the experience. They would really struggle here. But this means your ability, which technically we should be really good at, is giving context, giving clarity, describing the end state, all becomes skills in this AI world. So this is what you start to do, is you start to actually shape it by giving context, by giving the vision and clearly articulating it. If you give a new employee vague and bad direction, you'll get vague and bad output. AI behaves the same. So we're in this world where you need to do that. And just one thing on this to me is actually getting deeper than prompt engineering. It's actually getting to more context engineering, because what I'm seeing is the AI models are just getting better and better, and prompting is actually largely solved. This whole it's actually, there's not even good research to actually support this anyways, but you'll see people out there, they'll talk about how this is like the anatomy of a prompt. You need to follow this, like give it a persona and blah. By the way, there's nothing credible, at least not from what I could see and find, and from my own testing, it didn't show it either. Given a persona versus not given a persona doesn't change. Sometimes the persona helps because in the persona you give context. So you might say your persona is, I'll give an example. You are a user researcher that has worked inside the energy industry, and you on SaaS products to do with this. But what you've actually done on that tail end is given them a whole bunch of context. If you just gave that context, you'll get kind of very similar outcomes. But this is actually getting more into like a context engineering. So like really getting really good at working out what context to give the AI and giving it lots of context and giving it that clarity is a huge skill that's being developed right now. Onboarding of new joiners, completely different, right mindset. Yeah, 100%. That's the way you need to be going there. Nick, I'll answer your question about research in a bit. I'll actually show you some of the stuff that I'll show you what I'm doing, and hopefully that'll help. Okay, so two last things on this about how the role is changing. If the role is changing because of these things, so if it's changing like this, then obviously strategy, business acumen and stuff becomes a very important skill. And that's something that you need, again, makes it very hard for junior people, but that's something that you need to start to shift yourself towards, right? Your value is going to be in strategic thinking. How do you tie things back to the business? Judgment and taste, right? And then being able to take that and in context engineer it and then clearly articulate it in, again, if we go back up to here, in some type of spec. So then you can give that to AI plus engineers and design too. And they can actually go and build that. And AI can be AI is a huge lever to be like, this is the intent of what I'm trying to do. How might I solve this? And that's just a little hack in general to do with AI. Anytime I get stuck, I basically do that. Here's what I'm trying to achieve. Here's the context around it. Here's the constraints that I have. What are the options that I have? And then we kind of go through the options from there. So strategy, judgment, taste, those things is going to be big. But then the other thing is evals, right? So some of the work that you're doing up here in this invisible work, sorry to make all these pictures messy, but if you've seen my stuff before, sometimes it's very messy, and today's one of those days. We need to do what is known as evals. Now, there's multiple layers to evals, but I'm going to break it down simplified and just talk about two different types of evals. There's the technical AI eval, which is we're going to code stuff and build stuff to evaluate the output of the AI before a human looks at it, because we can evaluate it and make it kind of self-fix itself and make it better and point out problems and fix problems, right? There's another piece of eval. So there's that technical side. we go technical eval, so like AI eval. But there's also eval in more the traditional sense, the more, soft skill is what I was going to say, but like in a skill sense, I'll just say skill, where we move into a world where, again, you're a manager. Where did I draw that? Getting messy. You're a manager. So when you do this 10%, part of what you're doing here is you're evaluating. The reason why you're overlaying got my eraser. The reason why you're overlaying taste and judgment and stuff and shaping at the end is you're evaluating what the agent has come back with, right? So when it comes back with research, I'm evaluating said research. And that's the reason why inside my research skills, I am very clear that it needs to plan it first. I review that plan. That's the 10% here. So some pro tips on how to work, but this just shows you how the work is changing. Previously, I would just kind of like do the research, or I'd sit down with like as a product trio and be like, hey, let's do an assumptions mapping. Here's what we're going to do. Okay, how do we test this? And we kind of run with discovery. Now it's different. Now I'm like, okay, what are the things that I'm still doing the assumptions mapping and stuff, but I'm looking at it and I'm going, what are the things that we can give AI to do? And then in order for me to give it to it, I need to shape it. I need to give it context. I need to give it clarity around the end state. What do I want it to produce? I don't want it to waste a truck ton of tokens. I want it to get a intended end state. So I need to shape that. And then I need to let it go. And then when it comes back, I need to evaluate that, right? I need to look at it. And so in my skills, I have things like it needs to plan it. That's the 10% here. But I also get it for this side of the fence. I also get it to reference everything. So I consider references. If it makes any assumptions, it has to document the assumptions. It documents its reasoning. And then the other thing that I get it to do is I get it to also basically talk about how, how was the research conducted, right? So we have a plan, but I wanted to really have it at the top that says, this is how we conducted it. And that's important because it is context switching. I can kick that research off. I just ran research the other day that Claude cooked for 20 something minutes, right? So 20 minutes has passed. I've gone and done a whole bunch of stuff. And then I'm looking at it later. I might not fully remember the plan. So I wanted to document some of that so I can read it and go, okay, that's what this is all about. So I can kind of remind myself there. This is me trying to manage this problem. But that's why I have those things, because actually your skill of evaluating it and looking at whether it's good, whether it's bad, what do we need to shape is it's huge, right? So to summarize some of this, we're moving towards being a manager of agents. We need to get good at eval. We're starting to move upstream. So we need to get good at strategy. We're spending more time there at strategy and discovery. And we're starting to do just like what Federico shared around that spec-driven development. We're writing specs. We're not writing user stories anymore. And we're seeing this like Linear, even I could probably pull it up later, but some of you probably might have seen it. Like Linear is an issue tracking tool, Jira competitor. They announced that issue tracking was dead, that they actually need to pivot to be something that helps to manage all of this, right? And what they talk about in that article is very much what I'm seeing here. So we can actually go through that in a second too, if people are interested. I thought I had it open next to me, but I must have closed it. Cool. So how is this changing from a company perspective? All right. And I'm going to demo some of what some of this looks like too, like with Claude Code and stuff like that. And you can see how it actually looks. Because I like to, this is one of the reasons why I've been quiet on it, because I want to just show you. I think it's much more powerful if I just show you. So we'll talk about it and I show you, because you're just going to get more out of like, here's how it actually looks. So from a company perspective, this means that one of them is that we're having less managers. So in a way, like everyone's becoming a manager because we're managing agents, which means that people who might have been like, if you think about like CPO, let me just draw out a bit of you could have like director of product, DOP, then you might have like group product manager, and then you kind of get into the IC part, like PMs, right? What's happening is that this is just being flattened, right? We don't need so many layers anymore. So people who used to be group product managers are now becoming like principals, or sometimes they're not, titles not changing. They're just acting in that way. Different principle. So sometimes the title's not changing, but we're just flattening it. So I'm seeing managers start to get back to IC work, us not need so many managers anymore, because everyone's starting to shift, right? If you think about that shift, this is why I'm trying to take you through the journey. If everyone's shifting more upstream and everyone's doing more strategy work, then a lot of what these people's roles were things like coaching, things like division and strategy, right? But if we can have these people move more upstream and take more ownership over that, then you can kind of delete a whole level, right? And that's, I mean, some companies are literally doing this by downsizing and actually reducing headcount. But even the ones that aren't, this is the shift that I'm seeing. We're seeing us have smaller teams and just have more smaller teams with less layers, because we're everything's chunking up. If everything chunks up a level, we don't need to manage that level, right? We don't need to manage the next layer down, because AI and agents are kind of taking a lot of that. So that's kind of moving, and that's because of the unit of work is shifting, and then everyone's kind of shifting that way. Yeah, well, we'll touch on sorry, on LinkedIn, like the integration's not that great. So, but like, yeah, I'll pull up the linear stuff in a second and we'll talk through it, because I think it's actually really, really good. The other shift that is happening inside of companies is that what is happening is that we are doing more things on internal products. So I'm actually seeing very few, and the companies that were trying to do external customer facing features that they were back in 2024, a lot of them are abandoning them, and they're shifting to just focus more internally. And there's a few reasons for this. I'm not going to get super deep into this because this could be a whole talk on itself. But the challenge that we have with AI is not how fast the technology goes and how fast we can do things. It's actually human behavior. So many of you will probably be familiar with like the diffusion of innovation, which is what I'm trying to sketch here. Diffusion, I believe it's spelled like that, of innovation. And the way that what this looks like is basically we have like early adopters and we have innovators, and then we have the majority, and the majority split between like the early majority, and then late. And then you have like laggards. Laggards, I'll just say that. Laggards will only adopt something when they're forced to. They have no choice. These are people who are probably still on-prem and not using mobile apps and stuff, and they kind of get forced into doing it. But this is human behavior, and regardless of how fast AI and technology can change, we will still follow this curve, and human behavior will be the limitation. What that means is basically companies have shipped all these like customer facing stuff, and that's been great for these people. And these people are like, this is amazing. And this is why AI companies can grow so fast. If you're only an AI company, this doesn't apply. So caveat there, because you're just going to target these people. But for the companies that you have people spread across all of this, because you're a mature company, what you find is you're shipping these things and adoption is just not there. And it's costing you a lot of money because tokens are expensive. So what do? Well, AI is still amazing. There's so many things that we can do. Why don't we just look at all of the stuff internally that we can actually get AI to just do for us? Again, how do we apply those things that I talked about before, where the unit of work is shifting up, everyone's moving away from like that downstream delivery stuff and more upstream? How do we just do that across everyone, right? Just make everyone more efficient and make everyone more effective. And the reason why, even though it's still humans and the diffusion of innovation still technically applies there, the reason why this is different is because inside of a company, you have control over it. You can force adoption, right? You can also, unfortunately, if you want to, you can also fire people, right? But you have more control of it. You have access to the data and everything, and you can control nurturing people through adopting it, as opposed to it completely being out in the wild. So the other thing that I'm seeing is actually the biggest opportunity is that we're getting a lot of product managers working on AI stuff for internal platforms, internal products. So most of them, I still have some people in the product mentorship and some clients that are doing customer facing AI stuff. But for everyone else, like the other 80% that are building AI stuff, it's all internal. It's all internal efficiency type stuff. So interesting shift, but worth touching on around that. So where does this leave some things around the junior problem, right? So not only does this kind of cut out a layer, it cuts out the bottom as well. And it cuts out the bottom because a lot of this stuff, so if we go all the way back to here, a lot of this stuff and managing the things that AI is now doing for us, that traditionally was the way that we would help grow junior product managers, associate product managers. We would get them to work on this type of stuff. We'll get them involved with the team. Hey, take this feature, break it down to stories and go work with the team and try and deliver it. Hey, take this, this little research task and go do some research on it and come back. All of those things we can just give to AI now. And that's the way I'm working. That's the way not all companies. There's a lot of companies out there that aren't doing this. So don't feel like you're behind, that's for sure. But the ones that I'm working with that are more at the front, that's how they're working. So it ends up in this interesting predicament where it's like, well, the way that we used to train and coach associate product managers, we just can't do anymore. So how do we do that? And how do we build that future pipeline? This is an open question. Nobody that I haven't come across anyone that solved this. My clients are talking about it because this is a problem. It's not a problem today. It'll be a problem in the future. The other reason why it's hard to get the junior people is, where's that picture I drew here around the judgment thing? This way of working works when you're senior because you have the experience. You can apply the judgment. You can do these things. You are very good at doing this. So it's an interesting problem that is to be solved. The other things that I'm seeing to touch on that are more open-ended things is there's a risk that this way of working just proliferates a whole bunch of documentation, whole bunch of prototypes, all of that type of stuff. And there ends up being all this noise in the organization. So that's, again, you need more clarity, more communication, not less in an AI world. And you've really got to manage that signal to noise kind of thing around that. I got some other things, but I'm keen to just go through questions here. Let me pull up Linear's thing, and then let me also demo you some stuff while we go through it. But let me pull up Linear. And then let's share it. Let's talk about that. So Linear did where is it here? So they did this post. Share. Let me share this. Cool. So they did this post. Let me zoom in so you can read it all. But basically, they announced issue tracking is dead. Linear is a growing popular tool, especially competitor to Jira. I like it. It's a really good tool. I don't use it myself today just because I got a different setup through Notion and just through Claude Code and stuff. But some interesting things. Coding agents actually installed on 75% of their enterprise workspaces. Last 3 months, the volume of work completed by agents grew by 5x. And essentially what they're saying is Linear needs to pivot to this new way of working, everything I talked about. And it means that they need to become basically a shared product system that turns context into execution. Back to that context engineering. This is how, and it's a good visualization. This is a neat version of my very bad drawing. But if you think about it as a product manager, we're now managing this. We're managing how do we give context. We give it specs, we give it designs. Well, the designer gives it design. It has code. It should have access to previous context and previous specs. It should have access to research and data and information. And I'll show you some real stuff in a second. And it should be able to, and then we need to context engineer it because it can have the risk of too much context. And what do I do with all this? So we need to engineer that and give it the intent and the end state, and then it can just go and do it. And obviously we need some guardrails and parameters around it, around automation skills. And this is stuff that right now, if you're very AI peeled and you're in there, you're creating some of this stuff. So I've created a lot of all three of these, right? I've created automation skills, that research skill that I mentioned before. So that's the way it's working. Work is changing too, where you need to get good at how do I craft that context, but then also how do I set up these automations, set up these skills. I think in the future, I think you should still get amongst it and learn it. But I think this will start to be solved in a way. And you'll be able to just like download a Claude. Like, I mean, it's already happening, right? There's already like Claude's building skills and others are building skills. So you can just download it and then maybe you need to tweak it a little bit, but it's probably going to be, you don't need to do all the hard work that we have to do today. But this will still exist. And I see this continuing to exist for a long time, right? Yeah, so linear is becoming that. How do you manage all of that? And that's the big shift that's kind of going on. Cool. Let's touch on some of these questions. So Kurt asked a question up here about $1 million question being whether you can vibe code an enterprise software or system. The answer right now is no. And that's one of the reasons for that really long tail end. In fact, that long tail end at the enterprise level will stretch out to months. And I'm not joking about that. Real examples with clients. Where do I put my water? Back here. So real examples that building enterprise like SaaS products and solutions, there's ones that they have taken months to get it out the door. And it's crazy because stakeholders are trying to work out why, because they're like, this thing hasn't changed in 2 months. Maybe that's extreme, but like in a month hasn't really changed. That's because we're working on fine tuning evals. Like we're tuning the output that it gets. So if you take 2 steps back, it looks exactly the same, but that output that it's given you, that's very different to what it was a month ago, because we've fine-tuned the hell out of it. We've got evals now, so it doesn't do weird things. It doesn't break. It doesn't give you false positives, that type of stuff. But all of that's invisible work. So that's that's definitely it. Okay, not to give Kurt too much. It's just next to each other's back to back. So Kurt says, I'm wondering, vibe coding, accelerate product discovery, plus spec-driven developments, accelerate product delivery is the new AI-driven product development process. It in a way, it kind of is. There's still a lot of humans in it. So if the things that it can't do from a discovery point of view, it can go and do research in the sense of it can go through your own data and it can pull out insights. This is also another shift I'm saying is I've like not deleted, but I don't look at any of the dashboards I have anymore. Like legitimately, I don't look at the dashboards, and I just everything works out of the terminal and Claude Code. And you can ask yourself the question, well, why do we need what is the purpose of a dashboard? This is a product, like, again, break it down from a product perspective. What's the job to be done here? Well, the job to be done is that I have a question that I'm trying to find an answer to, or I'm looking for insights. Like, oh, that's interesting. Both of them I can get from the terminal and AI. And even better, instead of me having to decipher a dashboard, I can just ask a question of Claude or AI, and it will just answer it for me. And then I can interrogate that, right? And I can get it to push insights to me. So I can make it be proactive and it can push insights to me. So I actually haven't looked at a dashboard in a while. But there's things that it can't do, right? Like there's qualitative research, like actually going out and interviewing. Obviously, it can take the transcripts and it can help you do the manual heavy lift in there. I still find it not super amazing it's getting better at synthesis, but I still find that I need to go in there, apply my own judgment and tweak it. Pro tip, it gets better. The models, the more expensive the models go. So if you're in Claude and you move up to like Opus 4.6, the synthesis gets way better. Yeah, it's I read somewhere where somebody was like, moving from Sonnet to Opus, you start wondering if Sonnet had brain damage just because of like how different the two are. Obviously more expensive, but that helps a lot. Just pro tip there. But I still feel like I need to do a shape in. So a 10% thing. So obviously it's not completely real, but that is how it's looking. So maybe I'll just start to pull up some real examples and we'll go through some more questions, but let me pull this up. And full heads up is I've moved completely to Claude Code. So you're going to just look at a terminal and we're going to work through it. So beautiful terminal. I have a bunch of shortcuts. set up, so I don't need to navigate myself to folders and run Claude every single time. It automatically runs stuff. But okay, so this is where I have all of. Let's just do this. List out all of my folders. Sorry, well, typo. I'll get it to just list out the folder structure and we'll talk through it. This is for product pathways and yeah, so this is for product pathways. So I'm not showing you other stuff. I've got other ones, but I'll just show you product pathways one because this is my own stuff and like, yeah, we can go through it. So talking about how products change in real example of all of this in practice, right? So obviously I've got like consultant and stuff in there, but I've got like analytics. So like macro data and stuff go in there. But then when you zoom in, like my content, I have metrics and stuff. And then I have like individual analytics and the posts and draft posts and stuff like that. Then I have content strategy. So I've got a whole folder with files in there, markdown files that are all focused on my strategy. So this is documenting basically once I work through my strategy, I then get it to document what is my content strategy. So it knows it and it can reference it. So it can reference and triangulate between my audience, between the analytics, the key metrics, and my strategy. And it can basically help me refine my strategy and refine my content and help me with it. And also when I get it to do research, it can reference all of that and it can look for gaps. So that's one of the steps that I have in my research task, which is I don't want it to duplicate. So if there's research that already exists, go and look at that first and then look for gaps and again, plan it, right? So that exists. And then I've got like insights that we can document. So as we draw insights, we can reference that. Then product pathways, same. So from a product perspective, we'll look more like this, like kind of like this, and not necessarily the content because you don't have content. But the way that I would run it is that I have my product pathway strategy. It sits one level higher because the product pathway strategy goes across everything. But then I have like product pathways and then I have my individual products in there, right? So I have like my courses and I have like the mentorship that I have data and information underneath all of them and stuff like that. So it kind of all exists in there. And this is like starting to build that like shared brain, right? I'm trying to build a second brain. And another pro tip here, talking about context engineering, again, I treat it like an employee. When I'm thinking through things and I've got context, I explain my thinking to it. I give it the context. And then I identify moments where we should codify and we should put it into some of these areas. And I have moments where like I have stuff in here, you don't necessarily see it, but we have like inside some of those folders, inside strategy and stuff, I have basically assumptions and hypotheses. And as we get data and stuff, it will start to validate those and everything like that. And in fact, I might even just share you one that I got very recently. Let me just switch to share for a second. Yeah, let me show you this. This was something I was playing with it this morning. I was doing work this morning, but you can see how this is how work changes. So let me share a different terminal. And by the way, my screen is like terminal screens. But let me show you this. Okay, so cool. So this is basically going through data and stuff like that. I was trying to add some data that I couldn't get, but it was, where was the one that we talked about? I need to find it. So this is, oh yeah, see here, I've promoted the trend content hypothesis to active in the hypothesis tracker. Since we now have cross-platform data confirming it. So I was trying to work some stuff out around some hypotheses. Okay. So this is again how it changes. I'm not looking through dashboards. I've got assumptions and I've got a hypothesis about stuff. I'm not opening dashboards anymore. I'm like in here. And what it knows that I want it to triangulate stuff. No assumption or hypothesis is confirmed on a single data point. It needs multiple data points. So what it's doing here is it's like, oh, we now have multiple data points. We now have cross between newsletter, LinkedIn, and YouTube that confirms this hypothesis. So now it's moving it from like this backlog of hypotheses to like it's active and we're confirming it with this data. And then I get it to keep track of it because if our assumptions change, I want to be able to go back and actually see it and adjust them, right? Because this is an evolving beast, right? Like things change all the time. So we want to be tracking that. And everything's tracked in here, right? Because I don't want to track it in some other place because I want to give Claude, in my case, you can do this with other AIs, Copilot and stuff. It all works the same. I want to give it this, like I want it to track this and track it for me. So this was a hypothesis I had about something being platform specific and basically something performs quite well in YouTube, but then on other platforms, it performed poorly. And we're looking for the data. We're looking to see if this was this was my gut feeling based on what I had observed anecdotally. And I was just basically looking for data, whether it actually, the data showed it at all or not. And, basically found what the data supports my hypothesis. So yeah. Cool. What else do we have in here? So I love all this talk, by the way. Okay. Cool. Let's touch on Nick's one about, because some of you might be wondering this, like, what's the best way to get up to speed with all of this stuff? Honestly, the best way to get up to speed. So Nick's asked, from my own research, what have I found has been the best resource for getting up to speed with Claude agents? The best resource, in my opinion, is Claude itself. So I talk to it all the time about, again, this is where I think you learn this meta skill. And this is why I can understand some of the hype, because once you get to this stage, you in a way, you almost feel unstoppable with AI. But if you can learn these skills, and this is why I would encourage you, even if you can't do this inside your company, and I know a lot of you can't, like I have clients where people can't, they don't have access. The only thing they have access to is a walled off version of ChatGPT. And then they have access to Microsoft Copilot, and that's all they have. You can start to build the shared brain inside Microsoft Copilot through Pages and stuff like that, and Docs. So you can actually kind of get there, but it's not as powerful as this. But even if you're in that world, I would recommend you still doing this at home and on the side and stuff, just because it would teach you the skills that you need to be successful in the future. Because if the world is heading this way and we're going to start, and your job's going to be more that context engineering, you working with Claude or whatever AI you want to do is going to teach you how to be very good at doing that. And so to answer your question, Nick, like I actually find that you like asking it is the best way to do it. So everyone has access to Claude Chat for free, right? Jump in there and literally just explain what you want to do. Hey, I want to install Claude Code for the first time. Like give it the end state, give it the intent. I want to install Claude Code. Can you walk me through it step by step? Can you explain, how is it different than the chat here? All of that. I've just found it such a useful resource for all of that. And when you learn to do that really well, again, you just kind of feel unstoppable. I have moments where I actually I wasted but spent like 3 hours the other day trying to automate a lot of my social stuff. Now, I'm not going to do AI content. It's not me. I think those who follow me definitely know that's the case. And that's why I've taken so long to talk about this stuff, because I just want to show you it for real, right? And I want to take you through what's actually true and not some made up thing. But I wanted to basically, the reason why I wanted to automate stuff is actually I want to automate analytics out of it. But I just went down, spent 3 hours with Claude trying to work out of all the social platforms, what data can I get, what data can't I get? Essentially, LinkedIn has like walled off all of that stuff. So it was basically like, no, I'm just going to have to do a manual export every X time period. So, but very helpful to just talk it through with them and keep describing the end state and that. So I would encourage you to do that. If you want to take to, I guess, the next best thing, Obviously, you can do self-learning, but what I've found with this, and this is why I run a product mentorship, this is why I do this. And by the way, actually, small plug, but for those in Sydney and probably those in like Melbourne too, because if I get enough numbers, we will run it in Melbourne too. I actually find the best way to learn is actually just to work with somebody who has done this, right? So I've had the privilege of having clients where they're doing this, and I'm working with engineers that are more advanced than me, and so I'm just kind of like learning from them, and I get to ask them questions. And I'm pretty self-sufficient now, but for a period of time, just being able to have that mentor and actually work with somebody. Unfortunately, this is one of those things where it's emergent practice. So it's not so simple as like, hey, go watch a video. And this is why I haven't created a course on it, right? I haven't created a self-paced course on it, because if I create a course, it's going to be wrong in 6 months' time. And anyone who claims to know best practice right now is selling you snake oil, because it's emergent, it's changing all the time. What was best practice 6 months ago? It's not even best practice, because like we're just making it up as we go. So yeah, the best thing is to define somebody, and the next best thing would be mentoring and actually define somebody. But I actually find Claude a really good partner. Going back to my plug, which I ended up going on a side tangent on that. I try to give value first before I give a plug. I'm taking interest to run a AI build day. So basically, because of this, because I found the best way to do this is to just have somebody with you. I'm partnering with somebody who is really, really good in this space, knows more than me. We're going to run an in-person day. It's going to be basically 9 to 5, and you're going to have people like myself and like Elizabeth there to help you to actually answer questions, to walk you through it. And we're going to basically take you from nothing to like a full Claude setup. And we're going to do a few different ones, not just Claude, probably co-work as well. We'll see what people are interested in, and basically based on the wait list. So I'll drop a link to that later if you want to be able to sign up for that as well. Just take an interest. If we get enough interest in Melbourne too, we'll run it as well. But it's the reason why I'm not going to do a course. We're going to do something like that, because that's going to be the best way to actually learn this stuff. That's the best way to learn it now. So yeah. Cool. Hopefully I answered this question for you, Caviar. How hierarchical roles compressing. It's just because like we don't, it's compressing in the fact that we don't need so many layers, because part of their job was doing all this strategy stuff. And we can have, and a lot of administration too. And the more we can get AI to kind of take those burdens away, and the more we don't need junior people at the end. So we have less people in the hierarchy, so less people to manage. And then if those people are more senior, they need less support, less coaching. And those people can take some of the burden of strategy and that side of the fence. You just need less managers, right? Because I don't need to give as much coaching. I don't need to do as much on strategy, or at least the only part of strategy we need is like the CPO level, or maybe like the head off level, or director off level, or VP level. And then administration burden is going down. Senior people are quite self-sufficient. They don't need as much guidance, and we just have less people as well. So yeah, all of that is happening because everything's kind of shifting up. So that's how it's kind of compressing is what I'm saying around that. Okay, Kareem asked, do you think PM competencies are becoming outdated with AI, or are they still more or less the same, i.e. strategy, stakeholder management are still as important, but maybe execution is not about delivery and QA anymore? Yes, I think you're spot on. So, what I was trying to draw there and show is like we are moving upstream. So the delivery side of the fence is now becoming, how do we evaluate what the agent has built against what we wanted it to build, and how do we just steer it in the right direction to get the outcome that we want? Now, if you're still working, unless you're in that product builder kind of world or a solopreneur like myself, everybody else, 99% of everybody else still has engineers, and they're still working in a team. So that side of the fence is still owned by engineering. So that your tech lead or the senior engineers that you still have, which the teams are getting smaller, but they're owning that. and they're evaluating the agent's output, they're doing code reviews, and they're fixing stuff themselves when the agent just can't do it. And so as a product manager, you're just getting further away from that, because previously you would have 5 or 6 engineers in your team. Sometimes they'll have questions, sometimes there'll be trade-offs, and there's just less of that going on, which means more of your time can be spent, and there's less administration too. So more of your time is being spent making sure we're building the right thing. And to be honest, in a world where, I kind of glossed over this. I didn't really go deep into it, but just to go deep into it now, in a world where we can build a lot of stuff and we can build really, really fast, that discipline around strategy and discovery becomes more important, because otherwise you end up in a world where we're just shipping everything and we have no strategy, nothing's cohesive. And it's just, customers aren't happy either, right? We're not actually driving outcomes. So it becomes more important that we do that. So you need to spend time there and make sure that the things that we do build are then the things that are, we have high degree of confidence is going to move the needle and that type of stuff. So those core skills, strategy, discovery, stakeholder management, communication, I would argue are becoming more important. And this is why I believe we've seen that 180 view from 2024 when people were like, product is dead. AI is just gonna, like, what do PMs do anymore? And then they realize, product managers don't just update Linear or Jira. We do a truck ton of work around strategy and discovery and shaping the work and making sure that the things that we're building are the most important things. And then we've realized, oh crap, that skill is like the most important skill. And that's why you hear things like Gary Tran and stuff like that all saying like, oh, PM is the only role left. Because of that, right? So I would argue it's getting more important. And that's why I would say you need to get really good at those skills if you want to stay relevant in the future. If you're in a world where you are in that more delivery role and you just kind of feature factory, delivery side of the fence, you are at most risk of AI replacing you. But if you can push yourself up that curve, be more senior, have good judgment, have good taste, be able to work out what is high leverage and what is actually going to move the needle, you're completely safe. And I think you're safe for at least a decent amount of time. If we get to AGI, okay, maybe we'll see. But you're safe for a while. And here's another thing. I had this down, but we didn't touch on it. Here's another reason why you're safe. Because whilst you could just like Claude has access to everything, right? Like I could just ask it, like in here, I could just ask it, okay, well, what should I do next? What is the next best piece of content I should do? Like, cool, I could do that. But what about accountability? What about ethics in all of this, right? And this is important for a company, right? Because some companies are heavily regulated, but all companies are regulated to a degree. You can end up in jail. Why does the CEO and the founder get paid so much money? Part of the reason is they're taking on risk, right? If something goes wrong, it's usually the people at the top, because they're accountable and responsible. They are the ones that end up fined and in jail and that side of the fence, right? So accountability is still a key part of it. So if we outsource everything to AI, who's accountable in that world? Open-ended question. Don't know. I can tell you what the answer is probably going to be right now from a legal perspective. I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice, but I would imagine that they would conclude, just like with self-driving cars right now today, that you should have still been somewhat had due diligence and oversight of it, and that you were negligent in just letting it run wild. I would imagine that would probably be one of the arguments. If I was a manager of an employee that did that, that is the train of, that would be where I would go with it. So if that's always the case, then we still need human in the loop. We still need judgment. We still need someone to look at it and say, I'm going to take on this risk. And that's where we make our money. Let's be real. That's where we make our money. So we get our paycheck for. So that's it. So I think take the whole thing, that whole piece of the puzzle seriously too. Because if you outsource everything, what about if it goes wrong? And what about if you something happens? I did a post on LinkedIn recently. We don't need to pull it up. We don't need to go too deep into it, but I shared a story that I was reading, because I've been reading about this and trying to learn as much about AI as possible, where this person, they own a business. They set up OpenClaw to run their TikTok or something like that. And essentially it was just creating scripts and videos. And it was basically testing them And then based on the ones that worked well, it would double down on it. And that content drives sales. And one of the videos that it created, it actually created a video that basically said, it was something like, my landlord wouldn't let me do this until I showed him this video. Essentially, like pitching their product or insinuating that their product, that some person used their product in this way that got them this type of outcome. All of that was fabricated. OpenClaw made it all up. Now, there are laws in certain countries around false advertising, around misdirection, all that type of stuff, fraud even to a degree. And that would potentially land itself a case. Like I look at that and that's where my mind goes as a business owner myself. Like I go, oh, whoa, that could like land you a court case, right? Like you get sued off the back of that. And who's accountable there, right? Oh, well, AI did it. No, it's not me. Well, it's your business type thing. You know what I mean? So I think you just got to really, really think about that. Anyways, enough on that one. I'm very passionate about that, to be perfectly honest, because I think it's very important, but we need to be doing that. Cool. What else do we have? Somebody asked about running it in Canberra. Yeah, if we get enough numbers in Canberra, like message me on LinkedIn. Let's like line it up and like if we can get enough numbers, like I'll do a world tour if we can get enough numbers for it, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, we can go definitely do that. Yeah, cool. Going through what other questions are there? Kareem, I think this was a follow-up of yours, but I'll just touch on it too. Like, yes, the risk is that we just end up shipping all of this like not great stuff, right? And we just ship a lot of it. And like that's not, you're still expending money. Like, yes, it's less money, but you're like it's still waste in a way, right? So and why do it when you can actually speed up discovery as well? Discovery is being sped up for sure. Like I can get AI, like I can get Claude to go through my data and answer those hypotheses pretty quickly and stuff like that, which would have taken me a lot longer. I can put some things on autopilot, and then there's some things that I still need to do. I still need to interview people. We still need to do user testing. I still got all that qualitative stuff. I still need to do manually, right? As a person, I need to sit down and talk to people. There are people that have been, just a sidebar on this, people are testing to have like AI do user interviews for you. The people that I know that have tried that, they've seen a not surprising phenomena, but they have a huge dropout rate. Essentially, people get like 5 minutes into the conversation and then they just like close the window. So they don't finish the interview. And that makes sense, because if you're sitting across from a user, even if it's virtually, they need to interrupt you. They need to say like, sorry, then they need to hang up, or they need to leave the interview. There's social etiquette around that. You don't just do that to somebody. And if you do it, you do it in a polite way. You look for the right moment. And most people would just be okay to go through it. And they also are okay with it because they can see you there and they're like, well, you're investing your time. I can invest some of my time. And there's a little bit of like this equal fair exchange that's going on. As soon as you outsource it to AI, the fair exchange disappears. They feel like they're giving you a lot more than you're basically giving nothing back. It also just makes leaving easy. I can just close the browser. Like I can just leave at any time. So if I start getting questions and I'm like, oh, this is annoying, you just close it, right? So they've got a very high abandonment rate. So it's very early days for that. I don't know. Maybe it changes. We might get more used to it. But going back to the diffusion of innovation, if we are going to get used to that, which maybe we will one day, maybe we weren't too comfortable with digital surveys once upon a time, and now we are comfortable with it. It will go through the curve, but that's going to take time, right? So you're not going to be outsourcing that to AI like tomorrow, is what I'm saying. It's going to be like a longer type thing. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'll touch on this one actually with Federico mentioned, talking about doing the multi-model, same as I know with engineers where they use more than one model, like they know which is better for what. So Gemini for words, Claude for code, for example. I'm 100% there too. I A/B tested, by the way, not all of like the majority of last year, I ran ChatGPT and Claude like side by side. Anytime I got into the chat and I wanted to do something, I ran it in both and I A/B tested them. And I was looking for when what moments does ChatGPT do better, and in what moments does Claude do better? And then towards the end of the year, I shifted that to Claude versus Gemini, and then and I've kind of worked it out now is where I'm at. I've stopped using ChatGPT. I find Gemini to actually be better in general, just because Gemini has some more richer stuff. Like Gemini being accessed to all of YouTube and Google's library. Not to say that Claude and ChatGPT can't get access to it, but the ability to actually access and reference all that, it's just a much more richer research and kind of search tool. I find it better for general knowledge things as well in that regards. It's obviously got its flaws. It's not perfect. Claude kind of wins because I can kind of curate it with skills and stuff, and it has access to my data and context. And that's just like a trade-off that I do. But I'd still I use those two in parallel as well. So that's hard, I will say, when you're in a company where they restrict the tools. So that's the way it is. Cool. Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Glad it was the highlight of your day. Thanks, man. DM me if you want. Cool. Any other questions? I'll show you some stuff too to just give some, like, even just we'll do some, or even just we can just play around with stuff. But happy to share and demo too. But just to go back to this, just to give like some examples again as well. You know, like if I'm going through my strategy, it's helpful to have all this data. You know, for those who came to the strategy live stream, and you can go find it on YouTube where I walk through it. Like my first step in strategy is to go through inputs and get data, because your strategy needs to be data informed. But what I do is I go from data to narratives, and having access to all this data helps you be able to add to it. And like I can say, like, let's just get it to tell me what are 5 key insights that are in my inputs file for product pathway strategy. What are the 5? We'll do that. See what it says. But like it's all in there. It's in there, and it helps shape my strategy. And then you have the narratives around it, and then it actually has like it then can know your strategy, and then everything can kind of work together. And then you can get smart too, right? Like you can get interested around. This should align, by the way, to the live stream. If it doesn't align, it'll be interesting. But if you then have access to all of it, when you're working, it can reference it. It can help you. I've even got prompts in there where I wanted to identify opportunities for insights, opportunities for posts, opportunities for making things better as well. So it can do that. So yeah, I talked about all of these during my synthesis. The reason why this is very product management focused is because I'm in the business of coaching and working with product managers. So you all are my market. You are my customers, users, all that type of stuff. I consider these live streams one of my product offerings. I consider it a free product offering, and yeah, so obviously it's about that, and I need to consider these things, right? So if companies are shifting to profits over growth, what does that actually mean for me in my business? What does that mean? With the job market's recovering, there's actually was a Lenny post the other day about that too. Talked about AI. AI is becoming the norm, hence we're talking about this stuff, right? We talked about the blurring of roles, but this is stuff that I need to consider around my strategy and things like that. But it can, we can kind of ask it anything really around it. Have I tried skills in ChatGPT? I only found it buried in. Yeah, so like they have brought it out. I haven't, to just answer that question. So just someone on LinkedIn asking around whether I've used skills in ChatGPT. I haven't. I've like predominantly like Claude is where I moved. Like I said, I A/B tested the two side by side, and I just ended up finding that doing this in Claude, I just found better. I found Claude better for professional work. I got a video coming out on YouTube doing a strategy teardown between Claude and ChatGPT, but the TLDR is, and I found it in my A/B test. I don't actually say that in the video because I just wanted to do a strategy teardown. But I found that once it came to like professional work, like synthesizing, like this strategy, like helping me with wordsmithing and identifying opportunities and triangulating data, Claude just did better. It didn't hallucinate as much. I just found chat to just not just really struggle with those things. A simple example, right? Like I put my, we can even pull it up. What are some notable companies where PMs work at who subscribe to my newsletter? So it has this data. So like, when I was like crunching some of this data, because I was trying to, basically I redacted personal information. I don't store any customer or personal information in here, identifiable information. So I redacted. I just had like the domain part of the emails of subscribers, and I basically this was an A/B test. I wanted to try and synthesize, like, okay, well, if we can take the domain of people who have subscribed to my newsletter, we can work out what companies people work at, because some people sign up with their company email. And I was curious what some of those companies were. ChatGPT just hallucinated like no tomorrow. It gave me stuff that was not in there. It was just false. And Claude didn't. Claude did a much better job at it. So, yeah. So, we got subscribers from Google, Microsoft, Netflix, Samsung, bunch of big banks and stuff. ThoughtWorks, Volvo. I like all these automotive ones, Rolls-Royce. Spoken to some of the people, Qantas, stuff like that. I just think it's cool. This also, by the way, very much aligns with my content. There's a lot of Silicon Valley tech content out there. I have worked with people in those spaces, but obviously I actually work more with people outside of it. And that's why, I'm not, you need to install this. I'm being very real with you that like a lot of these companies and a lot of my clients are in a position where you can't just have Claude Code running on your machine like this. You need to, some of them, yes, others, no. So you need to get good at this and you need to learn it. But I understand that there's a lot of limitations, and there's 100% an AI bubble right now. And that's why, I want to speak to those who are outside of the bubble, and I want to have a real considered and measured view of how things are actually shifting and changing. And I want to break it down to first principles, because I also think, if I take this more principles view and approach, one, it helps you understand, like, why are we all talking about doing spec-driven development? Well, this is the reason why, because the unit of work is chunking up. So I want you to understand that, so you can actually understand why the work is and the way we work is changing the way it is. I think that's more important. And then the other reason why that's important is because if you don't have access to any of this stuff, right? If you're in some of these companies, then you don't have access to all of this. You can still apply. You can still think about how it would apply in your context. And then you can think about, well, in my context, how can I get good at that even though I don't have AI to feed it? Like, how can I just get better at writing specs and then breaking it down into user stories? But put more of a focus on that and try and treat it like I'm working with AI. So that's kind of why I think about it that way. And my content's that way. So it was a very fun exercise to do. But the moral of the story is, like, I haven't used ChatGPT skills because I kind of abandoned it for professional work, because it just was not as good as Claude. Claude was just far more superior when it came to professional work. So yeah, cool. Any other questions? I'll keep chatting and sharing stuff and demoing if you want it, but otherwise we can wrap it. We've been going for a bit. There was a lot that I wanted to cover, so I appreciate it. If you're interested in that AI build day, I'll try and find the form for it. I might even try and find it quickly now and share it with you all. And I'll also, obviously, if you signed up for this webinar via StreamYard, so I know most of you are watching it on StreamYard, actually, this link won't go through to LinkedIn. I think it'll only go through to StreamYard and YouTube, because they're the only ones that have a two-way API. So on YouTube, hopefully you can get that link to sign up for the wait list for that AI build day. If you're interested, those on StreamYard, you'll get it. Also, if you're registered via the StreamYard link, I will email all of that out, including this recording. I'll include that link in there as well. So you have all of that. So yeah, I'll call it there, but hopefully that was useful for you. I know a little bit different than just like the mechanics of it. I wanted to, like, when I say mechanics, I mean like I didn't just want to walk into this and go like, here's what the process looks like in an AI world. Because again, I don't think that's valuable to you. I wanted to start with like, how is work changing in an AI world? And then what is the repercussions of that onto product? And what does it actually mean for you and the company and your future? And for you to think about the skills and the things that you should be focused on. I just think that's way more valuable. You can tell me whether you agree with it or not. I think that's going to be more valuable than me just telling you like, this is how you work. Because then you don't understand the fundamentals. You don't understand why it's shifting that way and how things are changing. So hopefully that will also, the more you understand that too, hopefully the more you can see the delta between where you are today and where other companies might be, right, in the way that they work. But yeah, I'm going to start sharing more about this. We'll do more videos around this as well. I'll go back to the YouTube one as well, whoever asked that right at the start, and we'll consider a video around that. And yeah, I appreciate it. Have a good evening or day, wherever you are. I always appreciate you coming out to these live streams. I much prefer, and I enjoy, I'm just skipping words here. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy hanging out with you all. I enjoy the questions. Appreciate it. Take care. We'll leave it there.